Hi, and welcome back to Take One with Samantha Fremont for the 2025 season finale with a very special guest, Olivia Jones.
Hello. Thank you so much for having me on.
Thank you for coming in. So, you are a graduate of the Bachelor of Communication Media at RMIT University and also an aspiring screenwriter. I'm honestly super excited to dive into this because we have so much to talk about. So, I think it would be a good idea to start with how we know each other. So last year we worked together on a documentary short film called Life in Colour, which explored the creative process of the painter Jill Kempson. From your perspective, how did this film take shape?
It was wonderful actually because we really got to delve into a lot of research on Jill. Jill is a painter in the Nicholas building where I used to work in like the retail section downstairs, and she would always come past work on her way up to her studio, and I sort of always heard about like this elusive studio. And then in our studio with uni we had to do a documentary on someone, and Jill seemed like a very interesting person to investigate and like learn more from. And so yeah, you and I, we teamed up and did like, well, it was like 5 minutes in total, but I think we spent like an hour or two with Jill in her studio learning about like her process, and it was very fun.
It was honestly amazing to, I guess, go into the space with someone to see where they work and how she was, I guess, taking her artistic vision for how she was going to present these flowers, and see her working on them, like blending the colors and all of that amazing stuff. It was an absolutely amazing experience and a space to be in.
Yeah, I think the artists' spaces are so interesting. It seems some people have a really, they need their office a certain way or their studio a certain way, I guess, to like get that creative process going. I mean, some people they can do it on the move, but it was interesting to see how that like would unfold for her, especially because she was doing landscapes and nature, and her studio was so light filled. It really reflected her paintings, which was interesting.
Yeah, and also for it to be in the heart of the city as well is a very like different contrast to a lot of what she paints.
Definitely. And I think she was even saying she'd been to residencies in Europe, like Italy, and done it sort of out in the countryside. I think she touched on it a little bit, the city aspect, but it is interesting. I wonder if that influences the art she produces in different places.
Yeah, I definitely want to talk about what we took from the experience of making this documentary. So we did this as the major project of the Real People, Real Lives documentary studio unit. So each of us RMIT students have like media blogs. I went through yours and I noticed that you did screenwriting before and also you did it after as well in semester one. So am I right to assume that you did this or took on this unit as a way to broaden your horizons?
Yeah, definitely. I think the media studios that are offered are so broad. As you said, I did the screenwriting ones early. Something similar came up again the next semester, but I was like, I really need to take advantage of having like these incredible studio leaders with so much knowledge. Like I've got to go out into something else. The interesting thing with documentaries, it's deeply entrenched in storytelling still. Like you can, I think, have two people go out and do the exact same documentary topic and come back with two completely different stories or different angles. And so I didn't quite realize that at first, but a lot of it is still building the story. You're just writing the real thing instead of making it up.
Yeah, you were the one who conducted the interview with Jill as you had the, I guess, closer relationship with her. And you also, I guess, did storytelling in a different way by asking her the questions that allowed her to tell her story in a way that really let her natural charm shine.
Yeah, and we had so much footage. Like, I think one thing I've learned in these studios is I don't have the editor's touch. Like, whatever that is, it doesn't come naturally. then when we got back with like 2 hours worth of footage to condense into 5 minutes, I was definitely like, oh my God, where do you even start? I feel like you were really on it with the edit side of things, because like I think we could have built 5 different documentaries with that footage.
Oh, absolutely. We could have done like a 10-minute documentary. I actually did rewatch it earlier this morning, and I think what we did was perfect in terms of condensing it into a 5-minute documentary and also grabbing like the best bits of what we had. But I actually will say that I'm surprised to hear you say that you didn't feel like you had the editor's touch, because I remember working on the edit with you and being like, oh wow, you know, like I seriously thought you were the better editor than me, so...
Stop. I thought it was the other way around. But you know what? I think it helps having us both there, because we could be like, am I crazy, or does this... It's so hard when you're editing by yourself. I felt like you were on top of that.
So I ended up like from this doing Ready Camera 1, which didn't have any editing that I needed to do. And then I've gone into making this as my creative graduation project, which I'm continuing on my own. And one thing I've noticed about editing is I felt like I was having like a bit of a crisis every time I would sit in front of the computer to edit this, because I felt like I didn't know how to edit until I did the last episode with Miles, where I had all of this B-roll, because we reflect on what I did in semester 1, Pretentious Pleasantries, as like the main project of the Ready Camera 1 TV studio. When I did that, I don't know, it's like something in my head, like a switch flipped, and instead of trying to edit it like a vision switcher, I started editing it like the documentary. And I'm also hoping to do that with this video as well. And I'm like, oh my God, maybe I need to find my groove as an editor.
Yeah, it's clicked. I guess it's like practice too, right? Like, I don't know, so much experimenting and being unsure. I think that's the thing I've taken away from a lot of these studios, is half the time you have like no idea what you're doing, or no idea if what you're doing is actually any good. And you've got to do it anyway. You've got to do it not knowing, which is scary, but it's like kind of a good thing to have figured out. Because as you said, then you do an episode, then you've done an episode and it's clicked. It's like, oh, at some point it works.
Yeah. I also want to say that you went straight back into another genre kind of studio in semester 1. So you did Beyond a Joke. Can you tell us a little bit more about that one?
Yeah, Beyond a Joke was a really fun studio. It was run by Bradley Dixon, who is so knowledgeable on comedy, which was interesting because a lot of it was theory. A lot of it was like how to tell a joke. And the answer is kind of there isn't an answer. And yet there's all these books about how to do it and the types of comedy. And in the end, it's almost like a instinctual reaction that we have. I don't know if you can teach comedy. Every week we had to produce like a 2 or 3 minute skit focusing on a different type of comedy, whether it's sort of slapstick or parody. And that was crazy because it was so much work. I mean, 2 to 3 minutes isn't long, but to build the skit, to get everyone involved, it was pretty full on, but it was fantastic because by the end we were pros. Basically, at the end of the studio, we constructed like a 10-minute comedy film, which was really awesome.
Honestly, that sounds like an actually amazing studio. I had no idea that that's what you guys got up to. Oh my God, to be a fly on the wall would have been incredible.
It was pretty awesome seeing everyone's skits. It was very entertaining.
Were you guys like cracking each other up, the whole class?
Yeah, kinda. If all went to plan, which it mostly did. It was very supportive. Sometimes stuff you thought would land and be funny was brushed over, and other stuff you didn't even realise you were making a joke out of or was that funny would get lots of laughs. It was interesting. It was fun to get that live audience feedback. But yeah, also a little bit daunting. There was a lot of internal cringing as you sat there, having everyone else watch your attempt at making them laugh. It was good exposure therapy.
Yeah, for sure. And just to add one more thing about Pretentious Pleasantries, and also I did the live media unit as well, which is a school option. But basically any opportunity I had to host or to, I guess, be in front of the camera, I took it so that I didn't get scared of being in front of the camera. So I started out hosting a TV show and I would get so camera shy, and I feel like this has taught me the most in terms of how to be confident on camera, and also how to gauge how other people respond to things, which I think is a key part of comedy.
Yeah, that's an awesome way to approach it, actually, because I feel like, and especially in like a university setting, like I feel like especially in our cohort, it was such like a safe, collaborative environment to kind of like jump in. I wish I'd done a little bit more of that, because it's scary.
Yeah. I also want to say that you also took a bit of a scarier road as well with Trip. So this was your major project for the Beyond a Joke studio. So you co-wrote it and then you also starred in it as well, which was knocking it out of the park. Usually you don't see a lot of writers taking that leap to be in front of the camera. So were you always going to play Clementine, or was that a decision made later on?
I love the idea of being an actor. Can't act, like, I've put it to bed. It's never happening, but it's so fun. I love the idea of it. I know the idea that I'm sure is not at all realistic of what it's actually like. I think everyone kind of had that thing of it would be so fun to actually be in front of the camera as well. Initially, we all sat down together and brainstormed like the major story beats, the major characters, kind of the arc of where we wanted the short to go. And so once we had those characters, yeah, we assigned them pretty much on the same day. Always Clementine, really. And then as we began to sort of flesh it out and build up the dialogue, and things changed a little bit, but the characters stayed pretty true to how we envisioned them at the beginning. We had an extra character in there as well that we ended up scrapping, mainly because of time and also like cast. We were struggling to get someone else in, and thank goodness we did, because it was a really tight shoot, but very fun.
I'm actually surprised to hear that you had another character, because the story actually flowed really well with just the 4 characters. And especially with Clementine and Bianca being the 2 lone rangers, kind of, as opposed to, I forgot the names of these characters, but the siblings who stuck together throughout the film.
Chris and Courtney. I think that helped, actually. I think with the other character, it spread us out so much over the story, because it was kind of, then there was like a third storyline running through. It just got crazy.
So how did you guys, I guess, all decide that you were going to make this film? You guys shot at night in a rural setting. So yeah, how did you guys decide, hey, we want to do this is where we want to set it, and this is the story we want to tell?
Our wonderful director, Sarah, she came up with the core idea that was originally meant to take place at like a Buschdorf festival kind of setting, where it was still this kind of crazy trip that takes place over a single night, but we didn't have the budget or the people to actually shoot in an effective festival setting. And so we thought we'll go and do it as a camping trip, which actually worked out really well. And we shot it over 2 nights. It was so cold and it was at a property. It ended up working really well because the set was actually quite small. You know, you have the camping site and then everything else is unfolding around it. But it was really easy to get then creative with lighting and camera angles and whatnot without having to worry about having big sets. Very cold, but also very fun as well.
I love that you guys were able to figure out what you had access to and adapt the story to fit that. And I also want to ask, because one of the things that you had access to was a horse. How did you guys get a horse in your short film?
It was a very much, again, like we had access and we took it and ran. Jess, who was on sound and lighting, we actually shot it at her property, and she had like 2 horses and a pony. And when we heard that, we were like, well, they have to be in the film. And so it actually informed a lot of the storyline. And it was fantastic. She almost then took on the role of like animal handler. You know, the horses were really good. Oscar and I think Violet, they were wonderful. Yeah, it was awesome. It was definitely like, oh, we have horses. Let's do it.
And was that something that you guys had planned? Because it became a core part of Bianca's story. Like, she kept on saying, oh, I can hear the horses. And I'm like, I remember at the start of the film, I'm like, oh, she's tripping bad. And then by the end of it, I'm like, oh my God. Like, she was probably the one to finish tripping the first.
Yeah, she kind of handled it the best.
Yeah. And that's saying something because she had the really, really super trippy scenes. So...
And I think that was the thing, like, we wanted to have the trip. We wanted to communicate that visually through what she was seeing and stuff. And with the horse, it kind of just made sense that, like, okay, this is going to be a trip centered around a horse. And especially because they're in the wilderness. There's sure to be some paddocks with horses nearby.
Yeah, and the other characters' tropes as well. The siblings, I love that they both ended up seeing the same thing, which I thought was really indicative of how in tune they actually were with each other, even though to start off the film, they were like on, I guess, opposing sides basically, and then they come together over the course of the film. But it actually shows that they were in tune with each other all along. They just needed an opportunity to, I guess, talk things out.
Yeah, definitely. I think I don't know, because when you're living with your sibling and they're always around, you kind of take them for granted and they're annoying and you hate them. But I think on this night, and they go through this and they kind of realise that they're going to be moving away and they're not going to be living together. I think that realisation creeps in, and actually, you know, realising that they're growing further apart kind of brings them together in the end. And that's a good point, that they both sort of see the fake police officer and they kind of bond over it.
And I also want to know about Clementine, if I'm right, from when she pushed Chris and Courtney, from the moment she pushed them out of the campsite, she kind of turns inwards and learnt, I guess, about the person that she is. Did you find also through this studio and through all of the studios that you've done that you've learnt a lot about who you are? And
That's a great question. I think, yeah, 100%. I think it's such a hard thing to pin down because it's constantly changing and you're constantly changing. But you definitely work out what you like and what you don't like and what you're drawn to. I think some stories naturally feel more of an inclination to tell or to explore. And some of the projects are super out there or super random, but there's always quite a lot of creative freedom in terms of what subject you explore or even how you explore it. I think naturally doing something creative as well, you definitely learn something about yourself.
Yeah. So you've learned a lot about yourself through these studios, and our final semester was basically a lot of those personal questions as well about who are you? So how did you decide on the direction you wanted to take with your creative graduation project and also with your career trajectory at this stage?
I took it as an opportunity to dive into something fully and do it with a tangible deadline with consequences. It's hard to put in place self-imposed deadlines. I certainly find it a challenge. Going into our creative project, I was like, well, I've got 12 weeks that I'm at university. I have mentors, so I'm really going to concentrate on the thing I've enjoyed most and bring to life something finished. Like, part of me did want to go and make another short film and explore directing or do something else. It felt like more of a time to consolidate, I guess, and actually leave with something achieved rather than doing more experimenting, which I'd love to do forever. But yeah, so I did the first draft of a screenplay, which was a challenge, but it was also really rewarding. And then in that vein, I sort of followed all the career goals centered around what it would be like to follow a career in screenwriting, because I think that's kind of where I've found the most enjoyment and the most fulfillment during all the studios. It's such sort of an intangible career to me, which I think is my own mental block, but it felt like the right time to try and push through that and actually learn what could be possible.
Yeah, your screenplay is something that you expanded on from a previous studio. Can you explain what it is and also how it evolved from that first studio into your creative graduation project?
Yeah, so I took a studio called The Plot Thickens with Stacey Taylor, who is an excellent tutor, and she's worked in screenwriting, and I believe she's also does a lot of academic research into genre as well, and television too. she's got so much knowledge on story structure and character and how to build world, and you sort of don't realize how many components go into creating a story until you start to break it all apart, which is really fun but also kind of daunting, as suddenly you've got to consider all these flying parts and sort of wrangle it into something that's like a kind of 3-act structure. And so she was really instrumental in teaching us kind of how to do that, and we had like pitching sessions, and then our final project was to present a treatment, which is like, mine was a 20-page document which basically summarizes each scene. So there's no dialogue or anything, but it's kind of, I guess, an industry document if you want to present an idea for funding or whatnot. And so I had this unfinished but kind of whole story, and I thought, I kind of always in the back of my head was like, I need to sit down and write that, but the idea was always really daunting. And so when the creative graduate project came around, I was like, you know what, if I have 12 weeks where I've got to get it done, I feel like that's the only way I'm going to be able to really push through and at least get a first draft finished to like the fade out point.
So it's called A Pastiche. Can you tell us what is the story?
Yeah, so it's about this young woman. It's set in Australia. She's living in Melbourne. She's about 26. She suddenly realised that maybe she's quite mediocre. She's an aspiring actress. She wants this dream, the fame. She's living with her best friend, and then her best friend leaves, and she's kind of left being like, what next? And she ends up stealing the identity of her friend, who is a painter, and going on this art retreat under the guise of someone else's identity. And interestingly, I explained it as a coming of age in my project, but I think I'm realising now it's not a coming of age. This young woman, she does learn things, but I don't know if they're for the better. I don't know if it's your typical hero's journey in its third act. It's morphing, it's as I write it, so it's interesting to undergo that process.
Was this always going to be a feature-length story, or did you decide when you actually sat down with it that it needed to be in this format?
It was always going to be a feature length in the sense that the treatment I did for it in the first studio had to be a feature, so it was plotted out to follow the main feature beats. I did consider changing it into a series and just presenting the pilot for my creative graduate project. But once I sat down and reread the story, I'd created it around these major points to hit for like a 90-minute story.
Yeah, because I really wanted to dive into like why a feature length. I feel like a lot of people don't realize exactly how many pages you need to and how many scenes go into a feature. And again, you're doing it across multiple locations, and you've got all of these different characters who are in different scenes. So yeah, the fact that you're doing a feature, did it give you, I guess, some flexibility that you wouldn't have had if you'd decided to change it into a series?
I think it did. I think the thing about a feature is it's long, but it's also done after your 100 pages. Like, I think for a series, to write the pilot, if they're, say, 50-minute episodes, there's 50 pages if you're going a minute a page, and that's episode 1. And then you've kind of got to plot the rest across, maybe 8 to 10 episodes. And I felt like the story I had was something I wanted to tell to completion. And so I think it allowed me to delve into it and actually finish it. Whereas to do a pilot, I would finish the pilot, but I think I'd feel quite stuck in that a lot of the story hadn't been told. And I would love to do a pilot for a series and gain that experience too, because I think they're quite different just in terms of structure and whatnot. And I also knew the film sort of screenplay structure a bit better, so I stuck kind of with what I knew in that sense too. It's a bit more comfortable.
Yeah. And also, I have to say as well, sometimes watching a series can be very overwhelming for the viewer as well, because then it's like, oh my god, there's so many episodes. Because right. I just finished watching or rewatching Stargate SG-1, which was, I think, 213 episodes.
Oh my goodness.
And then they still hadn't tied up all of the ends, so they ended up with 2 additional movies as well. They were supposed to have a third, but that one didn't get made. And then they still continued that with they had a spin-off series that for part of SG1's run was running like concurrently. So this is Stargate Atlantis, and then they continued that for another 2 seasons. Then they had an additional spin-off, and now it's coming back.
It's
finally,
like,
after
so much story.
But yeah, it seems again when you started, it seems very overwhelming to kind of go through, I guess, something that is so long. And even now when we have like, I guess, like streaming series as well, you're still like, when you start, you feel like you have to complete the first season. You know, studios will order now, instead of a pilot, they'll order a season. And so yeah, basically as an audience person, you're deciding if you want to commit to 8 episodes or whatever. So
yeah, you've got to, I guess, the story has to keep people engaged and coming back as well. I think, you know, writing a series is like such an art, because, you know, you've got to end on these little hooks that are going to make people actually turn their laptops on again. And there's so much content nowadays. It's so easy to just watch a series, and even if you think it's good, never go back. There's so many abandoned series on my accounts, which I'm like, oh, I need to finish that, but like I'll scroll Instagram instead. It's terrible. But yeah, to create a successful series, I think, and have it be marketable and be picked up is becoming, increasingly difficult and impressive.
yeah, and actually, I wanted to talk about I guess, if you wanted to make a pastiche into an actual feature-length movie, what would you need to make that happen?
I would need a lot more drafts. I would need to finish it. Handing in the first draft was very, it's fulfilling, but there's so many issues with it. There's so much to fix. So that would be the first thing. But then I think also just, knowing how to present it and pitch it and get funding for it, I think is the main thing. Knowing how to talk about your film, which I'm not very good at, but really can do just as much, I think, as having a good script in some ways. Because if you can talk about it and talk about it with industry, you're going to get people interested. And yeah, I think there's a lot of skills that go into it. I was watching recently a film by a writer who then also directed and acted in it, that came out called Sorry Baby by Eva Victor. And I think it's just incredible the amount of work that she did before even getting it greenlit. Very, very impressive. But I also think you've just got to also believe in it.
Yeah, I think that's half the challenge with any creative project, regardless of whether it's a podcast, or again, I've interviewed a lot of musicians as well, like whether it's a song as well, like whatever it is, I feel like you have to believe in yourself first to then be able to create the thing that you're gonna, put out there into the world. So yeah. Definitely. And do you want to, is your goal to see a pastiche like fully, made into a film, or are you gonna or are you exploring other ideas and genres and styles of screenwriting?
I think a bit of both. I'd love to, I've had some time away from it now. I'm just sort of now coming back to work on the third draft. I'd love to get it to a point where I was really happy with it and was sending it out to be read by people more. I think finishing it to a point where I'm happy to release it to other eyes is important. I feel like that's when I'll feel like I've completed the project. whether it then could potentially go to market or, enter it into festivals such as Austin Film Festival and those sorts of places which support script writing competitions, would probably be the end goal for it. Whether it gets made is a whole nother thing. But at the same time, I'm keen now to jump into other stories and, maybe explore writing some pilots in different genres. I think it's a kind of craft you build up by just writing, even if you don't think it's necessarily going to go anywhere. It's good to have things in the back pocket.
Yeah, for sure. And I also want to say as well, for me, I didn't take a lot of writing, but I'm hoping as well to, I guess, give it a bit of a go, because in 2026, because I feel like, again, there's so many studios and we only got to do 4.
Yeah.
Which is that's the problem with this course. Like,
Sad.
I was asking in the last semester, because I'd finished my minor in cinema studies, and I ended up taking what did I end up taking? I ended up taking music and popular culture and social media communication as my 2 units. But I asked them, I'm like, can I just take another studio? So then I've got more opportunity to explore my media skills. I did actually send that email off to the coordinator, but unfortunately, again, I assume it's got to do with because you apply to graduate and things like that. And so, and there's course requirements and things like that you have to meet. So I assume basically the way to explain his answer was that I'd already passed the core media units, so you can just magically invent one for me to pass, which sucks, because again, I absolutely would have loved to have been able to do more of that and try more things out, but yeah, you again, I think all of us from the people I've spoken to have the idea to broaden their skill set, even if it's narrowed, because you narrow from media generalist into, hey, this is my lane, but there's still so much variety in your lane.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. It's amazing how specific you can get if you really want to. I think that's kind of why it's so hard to pin down a job when people ask you what you're doing next, or what you're applying for and stuff like that. Those dreaded questions after graduation. It's well, I don't know. I've got the skill sets, hopefully, most of them. Now it's sort of seeing where they take me as well, because I don't even know necessarily where it's going to narrow into, or whether I'm going to jump into a completely other lane. Which is a good thing, I think. But definitely, I also wish we had more studio time. All that live stuff, which you were saying you did as well, sounds so great. And I just sort of, you can't do it all.
Yeah, that's the real kicker. But yeah, I think for each of us, we chose the studios that challenged us to to grow creatively and professionally. So yeah, and it's been great to talk to you about your creative growth and where you're heading off to next. And I do just, before we wrap up, I do want to announce for any Take One fans who are listening that I think also there's going to be a bit of growth with this podcast, a bit of a change coming in 2026. So I've interviewed a lot of musicians this season, and I know some publicists are going to hate that I've said this, and some musicians as well. But unfortunately, I think I need to cut back on how many musicians I have on this show, because I started treating it like my radio show Earl Grey, and then I realized that maybe maybe I've got different goals with where I want to take this, and also where I want to go personally, that don't align with having that many musicians on the show. But yeah, I guess we'll see how the cookie crumbles in 2026. And I'm not shutting musicians out completely. I'm just I'm definitely just trying to spread my wings and make sure that I'm challenging myself as a host and producer. So yeah,
that's so exciting. I'm excited to see what season 2 holds. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, so and I'm also excited to see what your 2026 holds. So where can we go and follow you if we want to keep up to date with your with what you've got going on?
Yeah, I am on Instagram, and I've got some links there to my little online blog. That's kind of where I'm at the moment.
Yeah, I'm super excited to see what you've got coming up, what we've all got coming up. So yeah, thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been so fun.